All right, welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your cannabis business podcast. My guest today, Patrick Ray, is managing director of Poseidon Garden Ventures. Their thesis is to invest in pre-Series A licensed operators and cannabis technology companies founded by proven operators. The goal of Poseidon Garden Ventures is to invest in cannabis operators and technology companies that they feel have a greatest potential. With that, Patrick, thanks for being with us on the Talking Hedge.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about what you got going on. In 2021, you were quoted as saying that we see an immense opportunity at this high growth stage in the cannabis industry to actively scale these companies, leveraging our network and experience and position them for exits in today's dynamic M&A environment. So as a venture capital firm specializing in the cannabis industry, what are the unique challenges and opportunities that are you seeing now in 2023?
Well, that's a good question to kick it off with for sure. The cannabis industry is going through a very tight capital market period right now, as much of the economy is. A lot of investment is being pulled back that was flowing freely, just a couple of years ago. At a time when it's critical that cannabis companies have the capital to seize the opportunity ahead of them. We have new states legalizing every year. We have medical states evolving from medical to adult use. More and more consumers are opting to buy legal cannabis every day, and demand is for legal products is significant and replacing the illicit market supply. So there's a lot of opportunities. We are even more emboldened and have higher conviction than we ever did at Poseidon for investing in the industry, especially now when, frankly, we have funds and are ready to deploy for the right opportunities. And there's not that many of us out there right now. So really great opportunities to be an investor in the cannabis industry right now.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of opportunities too. There's not a lot of money in, and so you have to be very frugal and smart and creative with how you utilize that cash. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
since 2015, I kind of was trying to get people to utilize automation, especially in the pre-roll sector, developing
Mm-hmm.
pre-roll automation. And now I'm looking at investment decks and how to automate that. I run a hedge fund using AI, machine learning. There's a lot of advantages of automating things, regardless of what it is. So I kind of want to dive into your AI mastermind and kind of
Mm-hmm.
where you guys are going to lead with that, because it really I'm interested in it. Me and my wife have been spending a couple hours each night and just kind of nerding out on Mid-Journey and stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've written, or I've published, I think 11 books in my spare time. So ABCs of crypto, ABCs of investing, ABCs of hemp, and then a handful of stoner books, crossword puzzles and word searches and mandalas and things like that. All AI generated, mind you. So there's
Oh,
a
very
lot of
cool.
things you can do, yeah, at the artistic level, as well as, again, back to the pitch decks. And there's really neat AI tools for, if you don't know macros or VBA, you can really do a lot of automation on Excel with AI. A lot of cool stuff, including coming up with mottos or slogans or taglines for you guys. So I asked
Mm.
ChatGPT, an AI product, for some slogans for you at this AI Masterminds, and they came up with a couple. Want to get your take on it. So, blazing trails with AI where cannabis meets intelligence was the first one. Not too bad. Second
Mhm.
one is get baked and innovate, unleashing the power of AI in cannabis.
Okay.
Not bad. Not too bad. But how do you see the integration of AI technology transforming the cannabis industry, and what opportunities does it present for business growth?
Well, you know, um, so we organized our first um, uh, mastermind group on AI with our portfolio companies. I think it was last week. And, it feels like these days it's almost a full-time job to stay on top of what's coming out of, Google at Baird and Chat GPT and any other AI. So we wanted to make it a little bit easier for our founders to not only learn, but also share. what they've been doing. And this is something we're taking outside of just the portfolio. We're going to be organizing a mastermind group of other cannabis founders to do the similar things that we're doing with our portfolio companies. And we don't just talk about AI and chat GPT. This is like our fifth or sixth call where we've talked about topics that are relevant to cannabis founders. We feel very strongly that the sort of one to many approach of education and sharing of information is not always the best. It certainly has its place, but it's very helpful to pull together founders who all have on the ground firsthand experiences and have them share their experiences for the benefit of one another. So we did that with ChatGPT and AI, and I think it was a very resounding success. I mean, what you're doing with your wife is the classic you, me, and ChatGPT, right? That's an exercise and one point that came up in the mastermind call as a way to engage team members into this new technology, which can be scary, and there's always a hurdle, that people need to overcome when adopting new things. And whether that's like getting up in the morning and working out or eating more healthy, if you have a partner along with you, it makes it a lot easier not only to activate but to remain accountable. So like the Udemy and ChatGPT is a great exercise for founders to use to get their team members engaged in this, because I think that to answer your question, there's so many opportunities. We don't really know which ones will be the most effective and which ones will stick or which ones will have the longest sort of adherence in the cannabis industry. But we want our founders and their team members to feel comfortable in exploring this. And that's a technique to do it. In addition, we also talked about some of the things that people are doing right now. And one of the really interesting uses of this was pointing the AI, the Chat GPT or Google Bear or whatever you're using towards transcripts of city council meetings to identify when cannabis is discussed. So you don't have to comb through mountains and mountains of transcripts to try to find things that are relevant to what you're thinking about doing. We also had founders talk about utilizing this technology to summarize the tickets that they have for, if they're a technology company, into like customer answers or FAQs or frankly in their processes and SOPs. There's a lot of tools, there's a lot of applications. It's not perfect, it's imperfect, it's going to get it wrong. Anybody who jumps on any of these can find ways that it's not perfect yet. But it's important, I think, for founders and teams to start engaging in it, finding use cases, and then sharing those with the other team members to help lower that hurdle that they have to overcome to get involved with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was studying for the National Commodity Futures exam, the Series 3, and it didn't know anything about the formulas and anything. So definitely has limitations, but even for the ideation stage, so my wife was trying to figure out what to post.
Mm-hmm.
She's making some pictures on Midjourney, and then, okay, well, what do I post? I'm like, why are you asking yourself? You should be asking ChatGPT. Give me 10 questions, and then from that, you can get creative and maybe grab the
Mm-hmm.
best, or at least it's giving you some inspiration or things to go off of. For our hedge fund, we're using ChatGPT to have automated replies on Twitter, as well as doing a chat bot. So if you come and you want to ask general FAQs, bam, there's automation
Mm-hmm.
for that. So there's so many things, but like you mentioned, like we don't even know what the limitations are. Right. So, I mean, I've spent 20, 30 plus hours on projects just finding out what the limitations are from an AI standpoint, because you don't really know what you can't do yet. So
Mm-hmm.
it's building, it's getting better, but it's definitely not there yet. I find it fascinating though. Based on
Yeah.
your call,
It,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, it is one of those things that it's so new and it seems like it's moving so fast. So it's like
Yeah.
trying to jump into a moving car that's speeding down the road in front of
Mhm.
you, right? That's, I think, what some folks are feeling that are, busy with 1,000 things they got to do running their cannabis businesses. So what we were trying to do was to identify easy entry points for the founders and have the founders identify those easy entry points for one another, which I think is where the magic happens. I think everybody's been to conferences and spent time in sessions, and then usually they don't They remember a few things about the content and the sessions. They remember a whole lot about the conversations they had with people that are doing similar things that they're doing. I've been lucky enough to be in between those conversations between founders throughout my career in the cannabis industry, which goes pretty far back, and to see the value of peer-to-peer education and sharing that is just so much more meaningful, I think, than the sort of expert one to the audience many. It's much more collaborative. It sticks, and I think it's the basis for deeper relationships, authentic relationships, which is something I think we also came up in the mastermind call on ChatGPT and AI. Was how do you scale your business and your people in an authentic way, so that people aren't just sitting there scratching their head and like, am I talking to a real person, or is this an email from a real person or not? Like, you got to make sure you're doing it correctly. And that was also a part of the discussion.
Mhm. Yeah, there's customer service aspect to it too, like I mentioned with
Mhm.
you know, either automated responses on Twitter or a chatbot, but using AI and machine learning to enhance overall customer experience. Or is there anything you could share from your conversations or your own um, expectations on AI and how cannabis industry is going to develop strategies, if you will, to employ
Mhm.
and leverage that technology on a consumer or customer experience level?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can use it to tailor messaging to specific demographics, geographies, voices, languages, that you've written and perfected as a team, right? And that's important because I think in the cannabis industry we have real limitations on advertising and marketing. So the direct to consumer or direct to your customer marketing that you do needs to be more efficient, effective, nuanced. And I think there's some interesting opportunities for taking outlines, notes, and forming those very quickly into messaging that is pretty close, that still requires um, a team member to provide a specific voice of the company too. So yeah, I agree. There's many opportunities, but we've got to remain authentic. I think the last thing folks want to do is to like start putting out messaging and use it to such an nth degree that their customers don't even want to hear it anymore, right? I mean, I think that one thing that will become a product of this technology is an increased value placed on human interaction, right? And I think we already see that. If you've ever called your bank or the health insurance company, that it's one of the most frustrating things is to be caught into a phone system or a chat bot that is not answering your questions, and it does not build brand loyalty or value. It actually degrades it.
Mhm.
So using it at the right times is the way to think about this, and being aware and monitoring when it is the wrong time and holding fast on that I think is very important for a CEO and founder to understand and talk about, and understand what other founders are doing, right? So they don't have to step in it or fall into the pothole that can be part of that bad mistake.
Mhm. No, I think, like, again, I think it's good for ideas, but you kinda want that human to finish it off and give it that touch or culture or character, the corporate culture you're trying to put across. But there is a lot of, like, really good, um, efficiencies. Like, when this podcast is over, I'm gonna be uploading it to Descript. It'll be able to detect your voice, my voice,
Mhm.
and tell me exactly where the questions lie. So I'm a busy guy running a hedge fund during the day and podcasts during the night or whatever, and so I never summarized the podcast. I never pulled catchy
Mm.
quotes because that requires a lot of time that I don't necessarily have, unfortunately, and I don't have a team. And so now I'm able to use AI, put it into a script. Descript is what it's called, and then it'll tell me exactly where the questions are, so I can summarize it for people and create chapters. So only these things for efficiencies, but also decision making tools and processes as well. So, what do you envision for the future of the Poseidon Mastermind program, and how or can it identify companies with unique value propositions, giving you guys a competitive advantage?
We'll see. It's hard to, and I don't think it would be appropriate for anybody to sort of declare where the finish line is or even what the race is going to be like that we're running with this new technology right now. There's just ideas, and I feel like everyone, um, if you don't feel like you've just gotten out of the blocks, if you feel like you're up to speed and you're running, or you've crossed the finish line, you're probably wrong because this technology is moving so fast. I think the important thing is to remain open, and be ready to pivot, and engage the technology where you find, and it's on your judgment and based on, which is hopefully based on real data, not someone, again, up on a podium telling you like, follow me into the promised land with this technology. So that's happened before. I mean, whether it was NFTs or crypto or Web3 or whatever, right? There's always something new that technologists are pushing, but ultimately it comes down to human judgment and a nuanced understanding of what your business needs and what your customers needs, are. And I think it's important to see it as a tool, not necessarily like, for in your example, a tool to what sounds like to engage more of your audience in a different way, more efficiently. Absolutely. But the difference in this, your business is typically based on what you're deciding, right? The data that you're taking in and analyzing, not necessarily something that a computer is telling you should do. There's always a place, there will always be place for a nuanced judgment from an experienced person. And, at Poseidon, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for experienced people who have a right to win, operational, financial acumen, that gives them a unique edge to succeed. And I don't think that's going to change. I think AI, ChatGPT, Google Bard, whatever you're using, is almost like, it's just another question to ask to understand this person or this founder's approach to their business, and then how they answer these questions are very helpful for us in understanding whether it's an investable team or not.
Do you have any wild hopes or expectations or anything crazy you want to share about like some radical expectations? I know you guys have invested in Headset, a data company, and I'm really excited about some of the data driven insights we're going to see, the predictive analytics we're going to see, and how that's going to influence the cannabis industry. What are some of the trends you envision or um, see happening as a result of some of the data that we're able to get
Mm.
from AI?
Well, I mean, AI has the ability to, process lots of data and output insights. Sometimes they're absolutely wrong, right? Or they're totally off base. They misconstrue something for what it's not. I think that's again where, you need a smart, experienced person to, sort of analyze this. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, this cannabis industry is, recently born, right, and is still emerging on a backbone of seed to sale tracking, or whatever you want to call it, track and trace. So there's just incredible amounts of data from the early days on the industry, and that enables us to sort of apply that data set to almost anything that we're doing to inform whether or not we're heading in the right direction or making the right decision. However, we've always got to remember that, you know, it's hard to drive forward looking in the rear view mirror, right? If you're, you just can't do it. And we know there are shortcomings with data because this is a dynamic world, right? And it's certainly a dynamic industry where new products and categories are being developed all the time that have no history in the data set and that will impact the future of that category or that product set. So, we've got to be really mindful of, you know, spending, using data in the industry in the right ways, to make sure that it doesn't define in a historically biased way what direction we head in the future.
Will will AI be something of a general use, or will people be able to successfully tailor it to product development? I know that it's kind of weird when if you put learn and then a web URL on there, sometimes ChatGPT will say, "Hey, I don't understand websites," and then sometimes you can do a jailbreak or it's feeling,
Mm.
frisky and it'll just give it to you. So you can do competitive analysis if it's the right day, right hour, or the right mood, without a jailbreak. That's kind of your way around the limitations. Um, do you think people will actually use that for specific tailored products and product development, or is this just going to be kind of a general play that people use for content?
The most honest answer I think anybody could give to that question is they don't know yet, right? It is still so early. Let me compare it to the cannabis industry's evolution. When I started into the industry in 2013, the experts said that you couldn't own licenses in multiple states. The experts said that you couldn't patent anything in the cannabis industry. Um, I think we've found that is wrong. And so I always am very mindful, do not worship false idols,
Mhm.
right? You need to sort of deliver you to have a business tomorrow. You got to have a business today, right? And you know, these technologies can be very powerful, and they are powerful. And I think that's what's so exciting about them is they've essentially, ChatGPT has unleashed AI onto at a consumer level. Um, we have businesses that are working in AI that are, this is, when this came out, they're like, yeah, I've been using 3.5. I'm already gone to 4. Like, this is something that is sort of a little bit in their rear view mirror. But I think the moment in time that we're at is the democratization of this technology, the sort of providing it to every level of an organization in a way that's very accessible, and that's super exciting to see what's going to happen. So I don't know what will happen, but I'll tell you what, we're monitoring it very closely. We're using it as we should, and I think everybody should. One of the easy ways to you know start using it is to just start using it. Like when you have a big task that you're like, oh gosh, how am I going to undertake that? Is to open up Chat GPT or Google Bard or whatever tool that you're using and see if it can solve the problem that you have, right? We use it and we've found that it's quite useful in interpreting legal documents.
Hmm.
These are, if you've ever put together, had to read through and understand a contract and you're not a lawyer, it can be a mind numbing experience to try to follow what's actually being said. And sometimes what you think is being said is actually just the opposite of what's written. And there can be interpretations of it in two different directions. So it's not does not replace at all the role of a experienced legal counsel on anything, but it can help non-legal expert founders try to better understand what's in these contracts. So, you know, that's one of the fun use cases that we encourage people to give a try.
Yeah, you reminded me of the license I was taking, the FINRA license, where like double speak. All of the following are securities except, and you're like, wait, what? That's
Hmm.
not what I was thinking it
So
was.
confusing, isn't it? It's just
Dumb.
like it's like a helpful hand in understanding these complex or a copy that's written in a very complex manner. um, it's again, it sort of helps things happen a little faster,
Yeah.
and that's super helpful, especially in an industry that's moving so fast like the cannabis industry.
Yeah, you wanna know what else is dumb, is not having inventory when you want it. So we have 1,800 SKUs in Washington State, one of the most in North America, if not the world. You walk in and it's overwhelming, it's everywhere. And you wanna get a particular product and it's sold out, and then you go the next week, the next month, it's sold out, and you're like, "I wonder if they're having spider mite issues. I wonder if they're having" Nope, come to find out it's the store not ordering it because someone didn't pull the drawer out, they don't have the inventory. You would think that they would have software already. It's 2023. So there's issues I'm looking forward to that AI could alert people a little bit better on the supply chain management side.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of things that people should be using this for, that hopefully they will, and it'll improve that customer experience. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it's like the frustrating, the big hairy problems that we encounter every day in the industry. It's a new tool to see if there's a faster way to solve that problem or a better way to solve that problem. I encourage people, like, every one of our team members has a chat GPT window open all the time, you know? And I've heard people trying to make it their default search. Instead of using Google, they're using Google Bard. If they're, just whenever they have a question, they go to it. Today I was like, how are, how does an insurance company calculate a car insurance for a 16-year-old?
Mhm.
And I got a very eloquently written, digestible or ingestible summary of that,
Was that
and
through
it helped
GPT
my
or Bard?
understand.
Because I find that Bard is helpful because it has its resources that it tells you where to
That was
buy.
Chat GPT, but that's another thing you can do in that sort of you, me, and Chat GPT exercises. You can have each one of you can have open the window and say, okay, this is our question. Let's see what
Mhm,
happens. And
mhm.
it's just useful and it's helpful sometimes to have a partner in the exploration of these new technologies. Um, it just makes it a little bit easier for people to engage. And I think it's super powerful, and I encourage everybody to get engaged in it.
Yeah. You mentioned legal documents, but I would imagine that an automated compliance software would be phenomenal. Like having a robo advisor, for example. We're taking our hedge fund and bringing it to the registered investment advisory sector. So it's not just accredited investors, but bringing Wall Street technology to Main Street is kind of our drive. So in order to be a robo advisor, we need automated tools in order to make that happen, like compliance and automate, like
Mhm.
tell us like when these annual things are due, or whatever else, rather than people in Washington State running around with their heads cut off, waiting for concentrates to be capped at 10%, or wondering if there's the shapes are attractive to children or too colorful, or all of
Mhm.
these crazy things that don't actually hit um, the 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 legal framework. They're just bills in motion. I would think that
Mm.
that automated compliance software would be super helpful.
Well, that exists, right? So we invested in a company called Amnesia Media. Their product is Highlight, right? So the use case, and this is appealing to us because it was, a leading AI solution to an industry problem of how do you keep your marketing compliant with
Mhm.
social media platforms and local regs and rules that are ever changing. Amnesia, they have a product. It's called Highlight. I think it's Highlight with a Y.io. You can go and sign up for this, and you can upload any marketing, any images, any audio, any video, and it will go through and it'll tell you where you might run afoul of Instagram, you know, or your local regulations on advertising. And it'll identify, colors, characters, words, um, that you should be mindful of, and give you a output. And so that's sort of, those the folks that Highlight, they're a little like ho hum. Oh, this is cool. Everybody's excited about Chat GPT. We've been working in AI for years, but again, this is sort of the consumer interface of AI, and it's inspiring, and it's super useful. It's sort of it's what all these founders who've been working in the space for so long have been telling us for a long time, that this is super powerful and it's going to change the way we work. And they've been building tools. Adaviv is another company in our portfolio that has that for cultivation technology. Using cameras to identify pest, mold, mildew,
Mm.
to stabilize yield,
Mhm.
increase yield, decrease crop loss, using cameras that can identify this stuff using machine learning and AI. So it's fascinating. I'm excited for it to come out and touch more people in the world because it's super powerful. Um, it's a
But how
fun time.
How do you balance the ethics of that? Because I know I approached Morgan. We were looking to take our hedge fund as an ETF, publicly traded, exchange traded fund, using AI to fully automated algorithmic trading. Um, long story short, he just didn't know how he felt about AI. There's a lot of these kind of ethical things that surround it, ethical considerations, potential risks using AI, all of these things, and timing too. But how do you balance that, um, those concerns people have with the opportunity?
The ethical concerns related to opportunities, same way we have with every technology that we've reviewed. You have to make an informed judgment, utilizing your understanding of the historical trends, but your awareness of the future trends and where they're going. And then, data sets often don't consider uh, what you're hearing from people that haven't found their way into a data set, right? We have a mantra at Poseidon: take the meeting. Um, and I believe very strongly that some of the best insights come from human to human interaction that isn't recorded, that isn't in a database, that can't be quantified in a one or a zero. And that nuance, that subtlety about where a market is heading is critical. And you just can't replace that without spending, you know, uh, as much free time as you can talking with people and understanding. And this is where the mastermind comes back into play, right? It's not a data set, it's not a report, it's not an article, it's not a chart you're finding online. It's what another founder is doing, what their experiences is, and what their judgment tells them, and what they share with you. I think that is invaluable.
Last question, two-part question. Uh, you've highlighted on this, but maybe you can unpack it at this point. Discuss the importance of the mentorship and peer
Mm,
support for cannabis entrepreneurs, and why that's
yeah,
important, as well as the mastermind program and how it's going to facilitate those connections or foster that supportive community.
yeah. I mean, there are a lot of experts out there, folks that position themselves as experts and mentors, and there's just nothing replaced firsthand experience doing. You don't know what it's like in the trenches until you are in the trenches, right? And I think that is the objective of the mastermind, is to bring the folks together who are in the trenches to help one another. I always think of, the history that we read, and that the experiences of the soldiers in World War One in the trenches, and there was no commander, there was no policymaker, there was no strategist that could help them survive through the trenches, that experience of the trenches. You need to be ad hoc, you need to be engaged, and you need smart people around you, because they are the guarantors of your survival, or they give you a chance for surviving. I just think about that all the time when starting businesses. You need to surround yourself with other people that have a shared experience that is similar to your own and current. Because in an industry like this, in a lot of industries in our world today, it moves too fast. Again, I'll go back to the experience when I started in 2013. People saying, the experts saying you couldn't own businesses in multiple states in the cannabis industry, no patents. Um, all that's changed. And so I always say, what we thought was the way yesterday can change tomorrow. And what I know today can be out of date tomorrow. So it's critical to have a network of people that are supportive and engaged in the same way that you are, in helping move forward one another. So we think the mastermind's a great solution for that. I ran an accelerator for 7 years, and that was fantastic. And what the founders loved was the camaraderie, the support, and the accountability. But in a business accelerator, the ones we were running were 13 to 16 weeks long, and there was a hangover when it was over in the founders. And consistently in our exit surveys, the founders said they really missed the accountability, the engagement, the collaboration. So what we're trying to do is to create that, um, those elements of the human experience and the entrepreneurial experience in the cannabis industry with people that are actually doing it. So these will be groups of 8 to 10 non-competitive companies and founders. Every conversation is private. It's utilizing the Socratic method. You're listening, you're giving feedback, you're taking feedback, and it's in a hour and a half call every month, but also putting together opportunities for the founders to come together in person at events, and just facilitating the development of a network, a mesh trellis that we can all grow on.
Mhm. The industry is growing really fast. If people want to contact you, get a little bit more information about what's going on with AI Masterminds, how can they get a hold of you?
I think the best way is probably through LinkedIn. And my last name is spelled REA. First name's Patrick. I'm at Poseidon. I run the garden fund here. So I'm excited to interact with folks that are founders, CEOs, decision makers who want to be part of that network, that want to utilize the experience of others and share their experiences for the greater good of the industry. Because I think together we're trying to build a fast growing, sustainable growing industry that will, change the world. So I'm excited about it.
And I'll go ahead and throw Patrick's information for LinkedIn in the show notes. But with that, I think we're going to have to roll this one up. So again, I want to thank my guest, Patrick Ray, Managing Director at Poseidon Garden Ventures.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.